It's been 5 years since New York State passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. That's the law mandating the state's electric grid is emissions-free by 2040. But it turns out that local agencies have been handing out subsidies to natural gas plants. An investigation by the nonprofit news site New York Focus found local industrial development agencies gave more than $1 billion in tax breaks to fossil fuel projects since 2010. Now, many of those deals were made before the climate law was passed, but there still is a tension between subsidies and the state climate goals. So, Aaron, should the state force the agencies to work in support of the climate law?
It should. It absolutely should. Look, when it comes to energy, most people don't really care where it comes from. They just want a hot shower and a cold beer. And I just want an energy system where we have hot showers and cold beers in ways that don't kill people because of the pollution caused by burning fossil fuels. We need to have an electric grid in New York State that doesn't involve fossil fuels, and right now about 1/3 of our electricity comes from natural gas, which is a fossil fuel. If the state is serious about taking action on climate change, which it is because it's adopted a nation-leading climate law in 2019, it's got to follow through and implement those, and that means figuring out where are we still supporting fossil fuels in our system right now, and we need to move our energy system away from fossil fuels. The science is very clear on this.
I agree with Aaron, but the problem really is these industrial development agencies, and I've been a critic of them for at least 30 years. They have a very poor track record in New York, a lack of transparency, a lack of accountability to taxpayers. They seem to care more about the businesses and industries that they work with. And so the problem really is that they have this power to do whatever they want. And in this case, it's clear they are subsidizing the very industries and companies that New York State has decided should change, should get smaller, and in some cases disappear.
Okay, but they're also subsidizing renewable energy projects, are they not?
Yeah, about 85 clean energy projects were subsidized the last time the state comptroller had data on this. There is information out there, Rick. Yes, they don't always put forth the information that they're supposed to, and the state struggles to collect it. But you know, they're giving $1.1 billion in tax credits to different industries. To the points being made, most of those are in manufacturing, so that's a problem. But it is a way to help promote clean energy at the same time. It's just that's not happening at a great degree.
And they did promote clean energy, did they not, in terms of moving away from coal? You mentioned natural gas, a fossil fuel, which of course it is, but that's also...
So let's be clear about this. Natural gas is, quote, cleaner than coal. Why? Because it produces lower carbon emissions per unit of electricity delivered to homes than coal does. We don't have coal-fired power in New York State right now. So saying natural gas is cleaner is like saying, you know, we aren't doing the worst thing in the world, but we're still doing something pretty bad. I'm not going to eat the double cheeseburger, I'm just going to eat the cheeseburger. Well, your doctor's telling you you need to stop eating cheeseburgers at all, right? And so still having natural gas is still burning fossil fuels, still contributing to climate problems. Whether or not we want to use IDAs to support renewable energy projects and how the state's doing permitting for renewable energy, to me, is a little bit of a mixed bag, and there's some issues right now with how we're permitting renewable energy projects. But fundamentally, New York State should not be in the business of supporting fossil fuel companies with subsidies for natural gas power.
Well, why hasn't the state passed the regulations then? If you're saying local government should be required, why hasn't that happened to get the votes?
They don't necessarily have the votes. So there's another situation right now with the New York Heat Act, which didn't pass, which is trying to bring the Public Service Commission in line with this climate law. It's proved thorny. You pass the climate law, you have lofty goals. It's proved thorny to actually get all the political votes in favor of actually walking the walk.
Anirban?
Yeah, I think, you know, as far as I was reading it, that these ideas are public benefit corporations, and they're empowered by a state law from the 1960s to pursue policy goals that will help in economic development of the area. We have 111 of those in New York State. Every county has one of those, and you know there are also some towns and villages. I don't necessarily see the problem in the ideas per se, as long as they can generate income, employment. But I was looking at the Office of State Comptroller's report, and in the report, they clearly say that there's massive levels of lack of transparency, lack of reporting. Nobody knows how many jobs were created. And one of the contentious issues is this pilot. It's like not a tax, but they payment in lieu of taxes, right? And that they have to pay instead of paying taxes that on properties that are owned by the IDA. So on the whole, I think fossil fuel subsidies are bad, but at the same time, it's I don't know why it doesn't conflict with the state law, and if it could be sued in higher court that yes, IDAs can do this, but they cannot subsidize projects that are antithetical to New York state law about climate change. And I don't know why that is not the case. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, I was just going to say, there is the data. I mean, we know the state collects data on how many jobs IDAs create. So they create about 200,000 jobs. Now, at the tax reduction, that's about $5,000 a job. So it's not necessarily money well spent. I'll defer to Rick on that. But we do have some data.
But the lack of, here's the thing, the methodology is terrible. If I have a business and I say I'm going to add 10 jobs, grocery store, 100 jobs, let's say, I can show that I did that. But across the street, there's another grocery store that now has 80 less jobs. The net gain from my opening a grocery store that got this IDA money is actually 20, but on paper it looks like 100.
So
terrible track record.
If there's a county that has an IDA and there's a county adjacent to it or somewhere else in the state that also has one, and they both want the same project.
So there is a law against piracy, that you cannot pirate out projects from one county to the other. So that's in the law. It's called anti-piracy law.
Hard to enforce, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Right, and I understand that there is one of the criticisms is that one of the big impacts is on schools, school taxes, property taxes. So, Rick, is that how does that work?
I mean, what happens is, as Anirban said, they don't get money outright. They just have to pay less taxes, and usually it's property taxes. And so, since property taxes, is the major source of income for local school districts, they get affected greatly by these IDA programs.
But they like it, being on a school board. When you get a company that wants to come in and wants a pilot, you're getting money that you weren't budgeting.
Right.
So yes, it'll decrease the tax base. That's a good point. But you're getting extra
But
money,
if
and
they
you don't
came in-
usually vote against it.
If they came in anyway, you would get.
They usually don't. The thinking is that they're probably going to go somewhere else, and so you try to negotiate for as much money as you can get, and then it's gravy.
But that New York Focus piece did a good job on saying that oftentimes they have to say we wouldn't go anywhere else, but in reality that's seldom the case.
The Barbara sent us this email from Austin Wheelock. There's one thing though, that the pilots are not like completely free. They're tied to performance standards. So that's something important.